Jeff Bezos just funded a truck with no touchscreen, no paint job, and hand crank windows. And 100,000 people put down a deposit for it anyway. But here's the twist nobody's talking about. The price you've heard everywhere is already wrong. Stick around to the end, because the real number, and the reason it changed, might completely flip how you feel about this truck. This story doesn't start in a boardroom. For 3 years, a company called Slate Auto operated in total secrecy in Troy, Michigan, practically in Ford and GM's backyard. And almost nobody knew it existed. Backed quietly by Jeff Bezos and Dodge's owner Mark Walter, they weren't chasing headlines. They were building something specific. A team of former Harley-Davidson and Chrysler engineers with one obsessive idea. Strip an EV down to nothing, sell it direct to the customer, and let people build it back up themselves, almost like a motorcycle. And you can feel that obsession the second you see it. The base truck rolls off the line in bare, unpainted grey plastic. No paint job, period. That's not a shortcut to save money. That's the entire point. It's a blank canvas. Slate sells vinyl wraps and bolt-on accessories so you personalize it yourself instead of paying a factory a premium to pick a color for you. It's small. It's a 2-door pickup. And in a market obsessed with size and screens, it's almost stubbornly analog, on purpose. Step inside, and that same philosophy hits you immediately. There's no touchscreen at all. Your phone handles the infotainment and software updates instead. The windows crank by hand. This is the kind of interior that would have been completely unremarkable in 2005. And in 2026, it feels almost rebellious. Early reviewers who've sat in it don't describe it as cheap. They describe it as honest. Nothing here is pretending to be more than it is. Under the skin, a single rear-mounted motor, 181 horsepower, 195 pound-feet of torque, and a 65 kilowatt-hour LFP battery. 63 usable. Good for a Slate estimated 205 miles of range. It'll tow 2,000 pounds and haul 1,500 pounds of payload. Motor Trend's early ride-along called it insanely fun. Light, direct, no frills, in a way almost nothing else on sale feels anymore. So when reservations opened, what happened next says everything. Over 100,000 refundable reservations in 3 weeks for a brand nobody had heard of a month earlier. For comparison, that's more than Rivian pulled for the R2 in its first 24 hours. People weren't just curious about this truck, they needed it to be real. Here's the part I promised you at the start. Slate's entire pitch, the reason 100,000 people signed up, was one number: under $20,000 after the federal EV tax credit. Then in July 2025, that $7,500 federal credit got eliminated entirely as part of a broader tax bill. That single credit was almost a third of this truck's advertised price. Quietly, the under $20,000 language disappeared from Slate's website. When final pricing landed in June 2026, the base truck came in at $24,950. And once you add the still undisclosed destination charge, the real number is closer to $27,000. Slate says state-level incentives in places like California, Maine, and Oregon can still bring some buyers back down into the teens, but only if you qualify on income, and in some cases only if you scrap an old gas vehicle. So here's the honest version. For most of the 100,000 people who reserved this truck, expecting $20,000, what's actually arriving is a $25,000 to $27,000 truck. That gap is the real story. Slate calls itself the anti-Cybertruck, and that's fair. Where Tesla went bigger and louder, Slate went smaller and quieter, and it clearly struck a nerve doing it. Even at $25,000 instead of $20,000, it still undercuts almost every EV and most gas trucks on sale. Production starts Q4 2026 in a converted printing plant in Warsaw, Indiana, with deliveries targeted by year's end. But the real question isn't whether people want this truck. 100,000 reservations already answered that. It's whether losing that $7,500 changes your answer. So tell me honestly in the comments, if you had a reservation, would you still buy it at $25,000? Or does the missing tax credit change everything for you? Subscribe because I'm following this one all the way to first deliveries.